this is the beginning of the 2022 advent of code. Yeah, thanks for the shirt, Scott. Looks good. So this year it's pretty exciting. Looks like I'm actually still logged into mine, so oh no, I'm not logged in. But essentially what we would like to do with these kind of meetups is to discuss approaches. I'd rather not go through line by line in code. We did that last year and it took us over an hour to get through each of the days. So, but hopefully this will be a resource not only amongst ourselves, but as this is being recorded, a resource for others as well. But without further ado, let's dive into day one of Advent of Code and see what's going on. And so for the first puzzle, it looks like it is something called calorie counting. I'm not going to go through reading it too much, but essentially just to summarize, we're going to have an input with a bunch of numbers and they're grouped, delimited by, looks like these new line spaces. And we have to find the group that has the highest sum. And to print out the sum, I think, is the final task they have for us to get our first star for the day. So how many of you guys have finished this one? You had 1, 2.
Yeah, I finished.
David, you just got home, so haven't started yet. Hyunji, were you able to get to this one? Oh, she's still muted.
Like we have 7 on our leaderboard that have finished already.
7 on our leaderboard. Dang, nice. And so what do you guys think? So those of you who had already finished it, what do you guys think of it so far?
I thought, as is Advent of Code tradition, day one was pretty beginner friendly.
Yeah. Do you think it was easier than last year's?
I would say, depending on the language, it could be harder. I don't know. I think for a beginner, maybe they would get stuck on like on the new lines, like using a new line as a delimiter. That could be a difficult thing for someone, maybe.
Okay.
But I thought similar level.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, the idea of grouping as you go line by line and stopping to group stuff. And then do you group and then keep a collection of all the groupings, or do you just keep on going? Because really you only need to find the highest one at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So there is a possibility of, not necessarily keeping track of the groups, only keeping track of the highest group. Anyways, just curious, what languages are you guys going to use this year for this? Anyone?
Let's start on my screen. Donguk is at the top, so let's ask him first.
Okay, Donguk.
Yeah, I use first in Python and second is Perl.
Oh,
yeah,
Perl. That's awesome. Yeah, it's a language I have not touched in almost 2 decades. Why Perl? Why did you choose Perl? It's kind of curious.
This year I started running Perl, but I don't use many time. I almost forgotten that, so I want to remind the language Perl. So I use, yeah.
Okay, lots of dollar signs. I remember.
Yeah.
Perl, there's a new version of Perl, right? There's like a new branch that's not even called Perl anymore.
Yeah, Kanku or Koku.
Koku?
Maybe Perl 6 change into the other name. I don't know well. Perl 6. Raku.
Raku, that's right, Raku. Yeah, I've like I said, I haven't touched it in so long. I don't really know, but cool, man. Are you going to try to do the rest of the year in Perl?
Yeah, I almost 6 months to write the test code of Postgres, but now I don't many time to use. Yeah.
Okay. We also got a message from Hyunji. Looks like her input's not working too well, but she says she hasn't worked on it yet because she's discovered where the input was, but she's going to try in Python. So it'll be interesting to see. So we got Python, we have Perl.
I started mine doing PHP because I did it together with the students today. And since we're learning PHP, it was easy for us to get started with that.
Right.
So we'll see how long we stick with it.
Yeah, I saw you guys
Dollar signs.
also has dollar signs. I saw you guys upload some code onto the Advent of Code channel. Looks promising.
Yeah, Discord.
All
That
right.
was I actually had the students talk me through it, and I just typed along as they went. So they did a good job. They came up with a nice solution.
Are you going to keep doing PHP on your own as well, or are you going to just work with the students through PHP?
I'm gonna try to get them to like follow along with me
Okay.
as much as possible, as long as the questions don't get too hard and we have time in class. So yeah, I'll try to do most of it in PHP with them.
Okay.
It was actually quite comfortable. Like a lot of the built-in functions made it, I'd say, easier and faster than doing it in JavaScript, which I did last year. Like just reading a file was very comfortable, very quick and easy with the built-in functions.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Cool.
So,
And David?
I'm just going to use JavaScript, and to
Okay.
run it, I'm going to use Node instead of that. So I don't have to, so I can use the file system.
Right.
To read the files.
Cool. And I'm doing mine in COBOL. So we have a good like mix of languages. So we got like COBOL, we got Perl, two of the older languages. We have Python and JavaScript, two of the newer languages.
and PHP.
And PHP.
Yeah.
So I'm
5 people, 5 languages. Wow.
excited to see how this all like plays out. I'll be including also if you have links to your GitHub pages or wherever you're storing your code, if you want to publicly make your code available for others to see, that'd be appreciated. And just post it on the Discord channel, the Advent of Code Discord channel, and I'll include it in the description for these videos. Remember that after you finish part 1, which is the only part that we've seen here, there is a part 2. So after you've gotten a correct answer, part 2 will open up. And part 2 was interesting. Part 2, I think you guys will get a kick out of part 2 as well. But don't want to give away too much. So any questions or things you guys want to lay out there before we close this one?
It was fun. I'm glad. I was excited, waiting for the countdown. Like we were watching, like with 10 seconds left, waiting for day 1 to open up.
Yeah. Nice.
Exciting. We started reading it right away.
Oh,
Took us a little while. We weren't rushing to try to finish as quick as possible. We were just excited to get started.
well, shout out to Farouk from our group last year. I didn't realize that he was paying so much attention, but he was the first one to find a solution for both parts.
I wish we could see the time, but for other people. Like you can look in your own stats and see how long it took you to finish a problem, but you can't see the other people in your leaderboard. I wish they had that feature. I would like to see like how quick did Farouk finish?
Maybe it'd be something that the Discord bot that Michael is working on, maybe that's something that he'd be able to pull out of there.
Oh yeah. Or let's see the public leaderboard. Did Farouk make it onto there? In the top 100? I don't see him.
Negative feeling.
No, not the top 100. That would have been crazy.
That would have been crazy.
Those guys are machines.
There are people here who have already probably gotten like 3/4 of the code written, just waiting for the puzzle input and everything else. Yeah, I noticed that, some of the things that are repetitive, like reading files, formatting the lines. If you can kind of like make a guess as to how the lines would be formatted, you might have an actual, advantage of pre-setting up your environment before you get the actual puzzle and the data for it.
Yeah, or even have like multiple options, multiple different files that you can just open up the right one after reading the question.
Right.
Are we gonna share approaches at all, or just call it quits here today?
I don't know. Yeah, why not? So can you talk me to your approach, Scott?
Sure. So I did it together with the students, so I let them tell me what to do. We wrote up some pseudocode first before we actually even started writing real code. So we ended up keeping track of the highest sum. We just initialized a variable for that. And then we also kept track of like the current sum for the current grouping, I guess. And so we just looped through all of our data. And if we came to an empty line, so then we would compare the current sum against sorry, I'll go back. If we came to a line with a number, then we added that into the current sum. And if we came to an empty line, then we would then compare the current sum against the highest sum that we had. And if the current sum was higher, then we would replace the highest sum with that current sum. And then we had to reset our current sum back to 0 after doing that replacement.
Yeah. So you took the more efficient approach in the sense that you didn't keep track of all the groups, right? Because as each of these inputs are pretty much grouped.
One of the suggestions was to keep like an array of all of them and then use that later.
Yeah, and then just kind of sort them out later or whatnot. But you guys took the approach of, since it's a serial processing of the entire list, top to bottom, you just basically add up a group. And then once you discover the end of the group, you just see whether or not that's the highest so far. And then you have another group and see if that's the highest so far, another group. Because there's no, we don't need to know the identity of the group. We just need to know the total, right?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I actually did it with the groupings because I wanted to make sure that I was processing correctly. As each one of these were totaled up, I actually broke it out into a separate group total. So I kept a little collection of each of the groups, each of the elves. So elf number 1 had this much, elf number 2 had this much, elf number 3 had that much, elf number 4 had that much, kind of how it was written in the puzzle itself. But then instead of sorting, because sorting was kind of a pain in the butt with COBOL, I kept track of it separately with another variable, and pretty much didn't really need, so I had a little bit of 1 and a little bit of 2. It didn't really need to have the group of separate elves, but I did it anyway.
It wasn't too difficult. Even my students were able to get it with no problem, really.
Yeah.
And Tongu, what did you have a separate approach or pretty similar to what we had just said?
Yeah, I think I approach the same thing. Yeah.
Okay.
I just iterate the group, and when I find the new line, and I initialize the sum and next sum next. Yeah.
Cool.
One thing about PHP specifically that I liked about this puzzle was PHP has a function called file where you can just import a file as an array.
Yep.
So that's separated on the new lines. And you can even by default it kept the new line characters at the end of each line, but you could add in an extra flag to just get rid of the new line characters also. So it was
lots of tools,
a lot less processing of the data. It was easy to get clean data imported with 1 line of code.
The advantage of having the Frankenstein of a language that has everything bolted on is that you have a lot of things bolted on.
Yeah, it's a beautiful monster. All right, I'm excited for day 2.
Yeah, so hopefully, for those of you who haven't done it, this gives you a little bit of insight as to how you might approach the problem. Of course, you can approach it in a different manner. And for those of you who've already done it, maybe give you some perspective into other ways that it could be done. Hopefully, we'll see you again on Tuesday. Now, by the time Tuesday rolls around, we'll have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday,
And Tuesday.
and Tuesday. So we'll have 5 days worth of puzzles. So interesting to see how you guys get along with that. But so far, day one looks good. So thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you again